And I'm really excited about the diversity of them and the really new thinking that they're bringing to the space. So what we're going to do today is take a couple minutes and have each of them come up and do a little presentation about their idea so that you all can hear about them. We're going to do a couple, I think they're going to talk for maybe 5 or 8 minutes each, do a couple minutes of Q&A, and then hopefully at the end we'll have a few more minutes for Q&A for the whole panel. So again, I just wanted to thank you all for coming and thank and congratulate the panel for their submissions. And with that, we will get started with Hudson.
Great. Well, thank you guys for hanging around on the last day and coming to this. And I think on behalf of the rest of the folks here on stage today, we'd like to extend a thanks to the Department of Education, to David, his team at OpenIDEO, who gave us a chance to learn a ton through the design process they brought us through, and to be here and learn a lot from this conference. And so it's been an incredible gift to us to be a part of all the innovation learning that's going on here. And so with that, I'm going to give you a brief look at what we're doing in Austin, Texas. So Peloton U is a nonprofit founded 4 years ago, and our intention is to build new pathways for working adults to get through college. And as you all know, and probably have seen more dramatically over the last couple of days, college demographics have changed significantly. The average student now is working more than 20 hours a week. They're commuting to campus. They're over the age of 24. These are the folks that are in our community colleges. These are the folks that are commuting to school. These are the folks that are going to school online. And what we know is, for students like Anthony, who's here with his son Isaac, it's made the college process really hard. College was built for 18-year-olds that commute that live on campus, that attend full-time, that take 15 hours a semester. But the reality is that's not our students anymore. Anthony grew up in Calia, Texas. He got a jazz scholarship to go to school in Boston, flew up there first in his family to go to school, and he was playing the saxophone. But the problem was he could afford tuition, but couldn't afford the cost of living in Boston. And so after a semester, he moved back home to stay with his mom. Then he moved to Austin, where he could find better job prospects, and he was there. He got married. He had 2 sons. And he gave up on his college dreams. He got a job working for the corrections office for Travis County. So he's a prison guard. He works nights, works 4 days on, 4 days off, and takes care of his boys in between. And he really wants to be a detective. He wants to get a criminal justice degree, but he had decided long ago college wasn't in the cards for him because it wouldn't fit the life and the routines that he had. And this bears true nationally. We see the students who would benefit the most from a college degree, our first-generation learners, our low-income learners, our students who'd be benefiting kind of incredibly from the economic opportunity of getting out of the service economy and moving into the middle class. These are the folks who are most disenfranchised by the current structure of college. We know there's students like Anthony. There's 32 million Americans who've started college at some point and dropped out. They showed up for the first day, they took a credit-bearing class, and they didn't complete. This is a national problem, and one that bears true particularly in Austin where we work. Now the good news is there's some colleges have been built for post-traditional students. Programs like Western Governors here in Salt Lake City, programs like Southern New Hampshire, programs that said, how can we redesign curriculum design to be more effective for students that are learning? But by itself, it's still not enough for these students because life is full, because they've got full-time jobs, because their shifts change, because when they get home from work and are taking care of their families after a full-time job, the last thing they want to do is open a laptop and do more school. They don't want to write papers on the weekends. And so they have these incredible pedagogies, LMSs, new learning modalities that are built for them, and yet they still drop out at really high rates. And so this is the problem that we saw 4 years ago. We were approached by an entrepreneur who had about 1,500 employees and said, can we design a learning education pipeline to get my staff back through college? These are folks that are working full-time, they're predominantly low income, in Austin, predominantly Hispanic. And so we found students like Aligny. And we did 2 things. We said we think that there's high-quality online programs out there, for us, particularly competency-based programs, but there needs to be wraparound support for these students who are going through. So Aligny works in retail. She wants to have her own hair salon one day. And for her, we've enrolled her in College for America out of Southern New Hampshire University. And we've said, hey, by itself, it's probably not going to be enough. So we've got a physical place where you need to come spend 12 hours a week. You pick when, you fit it around your work schedule. So every week you get your shifts on Monday, and then you figure out when you're going to do school around that. We're open nights, we're open weekends. We're going to pair you with Sarah, who's a TFA alumni, a former high school principal, a full-time coach. And Sarah's only job is to meet with Aligny every week, whenever Aligny's got time, to help her navigate her studies. Sarah's figuring out what's coming up, what's going to get in the way of school. Is it academics or is it non-academics? Is it conflict at work? Is it trouble with your parents? Is it figuring out how to get a promotion and move to a different career? And the other thing that Sarah's going to do is give Aligny a deadline. She's going to say, you're in a self-paced program. By itself, you're probably not going to make regular progress to your degree. So every Monday morning at 9 a.m., here's what's due. And Sarah's going to tailor that for each of the 30 students that she meets with every week. So the combination of those 2 things, high-quality online programs with a space where students study that isn't work and isn't home, and they find community for online education. Coaching, that have students that meet with them with coaches every week, trained educators who are navigating their studies. And deadlines that are tailored to the nuances and the pace that the students want to set. If they haven't been in school in a long time and they want to go really slow, that's great. We can take 4, 5, 6 years to get their bachelor's. But by and large, we can help students move much quicker to the degrees that they want because they're going to go to school year-round. And we've seen that it's working. So for our students compared to local norms, our persistence rate right now is 82%. So of over 100 students that we've served, 82% are either still enrolled or have graduated. Our graduation rate for on time, so that's 150% time, is 87%, compared to 22% for part-time students in the Central Texas area. And our student debt is 0. So we make a commitment to our students that they'll graduate without debt. We help them pull down Pell Grants, we help them look at tuition reimbursement, and then we raise local funds to subsidize the cost of their education. And it's not just a good support model, though we think that that's the most important part of it. It's also a decent business model. So what we started doing after 3 years of proving the validity of the student support is to add a fee on top of that. So in addition to tuition, which at Southern New Hampshire, for example, is $3,000 a year, we charge a $2,500 fee. So students' annual out-of-pocket expense is $5,500. And again, we help them look at all sources of available funding to pay for that. Is it Pell Grant? Is it tuition reimbursement? Do they have disposable income, family, friends, or community that can help pay? And if not, we raise local scholarships and waive our fee and give them money to pay their own tuition, so they're graduating without any debt. So we've seen that be effective, not just in Austin, but in programs around the country. We have partners that are here at this conference in Los Angeles, in Boston, in New York, and in McAllen, Texas, who are doing the same thing in building community contextualized support for online education programs. And that's really what we're here to talk to y'all about today, is if you know folks in your communities that are saying, hey, there's a problem with degree completion for working adults. We'd like to build a new pathway. Our hope is to grow models that are doing stuff similar. So we'd love to send you what we've got. We've got it packaged into a kit. We'd love to talk to you about the financial model, the student support model, what it costs to get up and running, and how within 3 years you can be self-sustaining financially. So there's a website with more information. That's my email address, and we'd be happy to answer any more questions if I can. Thank y'all.
So if folks have questions for a couple minutes for Hudson? Go ahead.
So this is a financially viable model within 3 years.
Sorry, there's a mic actually right behind you.
If this is a financially viable model within 3 years, right? So why aren't colleges engaging in this model? Like, what's as you've talked to colleges and look for college partners or kind of other institutions, couldn't local institutions like Austin Community College or whoever say, oh, we're going to do the same thing?
They can, and we hope they do. The catch is we start from scratch with no overhead. So ACC and other programs have got a ton of fixed costs they're bringing to the program. Our pitch to new partners is you need 30 computers, a library, and a college coach that's working with students. So from that kind of ground-up structure, it can be break even north of 60 students. Even ourselves, since we're kind of building them all from scratch, it's more expensive for us.
We were wondering about content.
So we match students with best fit online programs. For now, just competency-based. So College for America at Southern New Hampshire University and Western Governors are the two predominant pathways for our students, with 1 or 2 exceptions based on prior credit, degree intended, GI Bill, and things like that. But competency-based programs we think are flexible if they've got some support wrapped around them.
Just to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So the colleges actually like that you're partnering with their students, I assume, because you're helping their completion rates. Can you talk about the partnerships you have with the universities?
Yeah, it depends on the institution. But by and large, we're finding new students for them within the communities, folks who didn't feel like they belonged in the current post-secondary system. We're recruiting them mostly from employers, but also from nonprofit providers in the workforce development and college completion space. So we're bringing them back to school, matching them with best fit online programs. And then, WGU and CFA are happy for us to bring them students, and they're happy to see more support. So it's a win-win. We'd love them to drop prices more, but they haven't done that yet.
Any last questions? All right, great.
Thanks, David.
Sergio, you ready?
Let's see. How you doing? My name is Sergio Marerro, and I am co-founder of Calia. That stands for Career Lattice. And first I wanted to start with why I'm passionate about this problem. My father has been working in the same job, facilities and mailroom assistant for the past 20 years, with limited opportunities for career advancement because he doesn't have a degree. And on the other side, I have my sisters that have a degree, but are buried in debt and feel like they can't start their lives, right? And I firmly believe there shouldn't be a path, right? That shouldn't be the choice. Indentured servitude to this debt or stuck. And I've dedicated myself to creating alternative paths and been working on that for about the past 6 years. So first we'll talk about Calia, and who we're serving are employers and also employees to help them upskill the workforce. So we're a virtual advisor. And what's the big problem? We've talked a lot in this conference that half of the jobs that exist today will not exist in 20 years. And everybody's freaking out, right? But there'll be new jobs. The question is, what will they be? And we are not sure, but really the smaller thing that we can do is think about how do we train and retrain people, right? As the economy evolves, we need to retool our organizations over and over again, and hopefully with the same people. And that's what we're helping organizations do. So what we're doing is we are taking individual courses across institutions and we're aggregating them into one place. So we are not the educational provider. We're pulling online courses, in-person courses from extension schools, boot camps, and what have you, all in one place. So a collection of learning experiences. And then we use our technology, machine learning, if you saw a little bit of what Andrew Ning shared, right? And we use technology to match courses to jobs, right? And the exact bundle of courses that are needed for that individual to go forward in their career. So how it works is an individual goes in and the data we collect from them is their current job, if they're in one, what they're interested in, and the next dream job of what they want. Using that data, we recommend courses and then also have built in the ability to create tracks. So tracks, think of tracks as a playlist. Just like you make a playlist on iTunes or Spotify, and then other people can see that, they can endorse it, they can also follow the same track, and it creates more visibility and learning. And we see that as a gateway credential that bridges the gap between employers and learners. And then why does the employer want to do this? They want to know how is their organization keeping up, right? So what we do is we will, if we turn it on for them, we aggregate those skills across the organization so that they have that view for each learner, and then at a high level across the board. So in essence, what we're doing at the smallest level is connecting people with their current job to the next step of where they want to go in the institution and using outside learning to do it. Whether it's free or paid, we will recommend the exact learning they need to move forward in their career. So talking about the market for this, over $171 billion is spent by companies and individuals on non-degree professional development in the US. We're focused on being a layer, the virtual advisor component, and we're focused on small and medium businesses that don't have a corporate university. They just don't have the resources to set that up. They may be anywhere from 0 to 200 employees, but and they can't set up a GE university or a Deloitte University, and they're looking for something in between, and we're helping them do that so that they can retain and grow their talent, because for every person that walks out the door, it's very costly to them. So that's the benefit to them. Our go-to-market longer term after we finish our pilot is working with outsourced HR providers that are working with smaller institutions. Our model is to charge employers a per employee per month fee, and they will get access to where people are in their course credential. We'll deliver to them the snapshot of the latest learning as it becomes available, as we curate it into one place. And how we're different than the providers that exist. You have outside learning providers, right, that you have to establish a relationship with each one, and we bring that into one place. And then you have learning management systems. We are not a learning management system. That is to manage your internal training. We see it as a complement. We're bringing the world's learning to organizations, and that's how we see it. So what have we done? We finished a pilot in Boston across 10 institutions, 40,000 courses. The results were awesome. We placed individuals and they were really excited by what they saw. The next step of where we're going is onboarding. We have about 25 educational institutions that have signed up and 6 employee companies as of yesterday that said they were interested in being a part of the private beta. So that's the next, our next steps. We have the team to make this happen. My background is in business and public policy. I've been focused on the skill gap for about 6 years. I went to the Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School of Government. My co-founder, Alana, she has a background in front-end web development and design and went to the Harvard Graduate School of Education. We met at a hackathon there. Sounds so cliche, but that's how it works. And Carlos, full-stack web developer, and Eric, very passionate about sales. He's been doing it for years. We have an awesome team of advisors, backgrounds in higher education, not only startups and public policy, but HR. So we're looking for more HR advice. If that's your expertise, come talk to us afterwards. And right now, we're really asking for people to join us. If you're an employer looking to retain and develop your talent, and you want to stay on the edge, come talk to us. We would love for you to be a part of our private beta. If you're an educator and you have educational content and you want to be a part of that private beta, come find me afterwards, and we could talk about if it makes sense, and would love for you to be a part of that. So that is Calia. And we're bringing the world's learning to not only your organization to step forward, but also every individual, one course at a time, as people can afford it and as it fits with their lives. So thank you. So any questions?
So I presume, I'm making the assumption that the pathways, the learning pathways may have courses from multiple sources.
Yes.
And I was wondering, are all the courses free, accessible? Is there some kind of passport to make it easier to access that pathway when you have to go through multiple platforms?
Yeah, so right now we have free courses and we also have paid courses. Right now we just redirect, so you have to log in to that website. We do have in our agreements with several of the higher ed institutions that they can actually buy through us. That's not a priority right now, but it will be in the future to make the user experience more elegant. So.
Thank you.
Hi, what do you use for your competency framework so that there's the mapping from all these different schools into a standardized searchable form?
Yes, so part of our secret sauce, I'll tell you what I can tell you. But what we are doing is we're scraping courses and actually looking at skills that are tied to those courses, and then also skills that are tied to jobs. Then when an individual says, I am in this job and I want to go to that job, we look at the delta, and then we use that to recommend the courses. That's the simplest way to explain it. Right.
Does part of your programmatic mapping include local community colleges for your institutions, anything beyond what's just available online, so in person or offline
Yes.
courses?
So we're primarily looking at extension schools. It's because they're used to people taking one-off courses. We actually, over the past 3 months, we've emailed 2,000 schools, talked to over 250 higher ed administrators. They want to sell programs, and they're almost not built to sell individual seats, even though when we do the course matching, it returns a set of courses that end up being across institutions. They have it's not ideal for the entire organization, but the extension schools and the continuing professional studies programs are a good fit for us. So we're starting with those. And then also on that note is it's in person, online, and we also started including boot camps because boot camps seem to be covering skills that may be missing from higher ed, whether it's online or in person. And then there's been requests for different types of content, so we're considering that now. So.
In that same vein, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
How broad is the coverage as far as sectors or occupations? So is it just limited to IT, advanced manufacturing, kind of the hot realms right now, or is it actually
For the boot camps, a lot of it is heavy around data and analytics and coding, but we also we've curated courses from Udacity and edX, and we're considering like Udacity, Udemy, because they have like a broader set, but we want to make sure that we select courses that are of quality before entering them in the database. So.
Sergio.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the demographics of your early users?
Yeah,
These folks-
absolutely. We're getting people across the board, actually users that we didn't intend initially because we were focused on opportunity youth. So you think about 18 to 24 out of college, they still can't find work. Like how can they reskill to get into jobs? But we're finding the people coming to us are actually seniors over the age of 50, 55 that they're, sometimes can be categorized as the working poor. Yeah. That they're stuck in jobs, they can't move forward, and there's 38 million of them across the United States. Yeah. So that's been a focus for us, in the short term that has showed up. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we got to leave it there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think seniors are 50, maybe. Let's do that. All right. So I'm going to change things a little bit differently. Thank you guys for being here. None of you guys are seniors. And thank you so much for having me. My name's Kat. I am a former refugee, and I'm a current architect. So very different path. And so I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for mentors. So when we first came to North America, my parents faked a vacation to flee from the Soviet Union. When I got here, as you can imagine, the transition was not very easy. Growing up poor meant I didn't inherit life networks integral for success. So I stumbled a lot. And like many of my fellow kind of new immigrants, I went to a number of college programs and spent tens of thousands of dollars and years studying something I didn't understand, nor later learned I even wanted. And it wasn't until informal mentors kind of showed me the way and realized that a career path was not linear. And what happened was that they took the fog out of the crystal ball that would be my future. I'm building MyBoard to return the favor. There we go. All right. My path and my life story is not unique. Almost half of new grads work in jobs unrelated to their college major. Crazy new reality. Student loan debt, you've heard this over and over and over again. It's getting to a point where it's actually quite frightening. And lastly, a career path today is obviously not the same career path as you had years ago. Quite often, a career path is a life path, and people go through transitions far more frequently, and those transitions are quite costly. I feel that mentorship makes life transitions easier and cheaper. Mentorship holds the secret sauce to this, and let's try to figure out how to do this. So my pitch today is not about an ask for money or an ask for pitch advice. This is almost not a startup. And to help you guys with that analogy, I'm going to use something that is common in my field, and it's called the idea of a paper architecture. So in my field, architects are notorious for dreaming up buildings that never get built, much like this building right here. We spend hours on projects that we know are never going to happen. What we realize is while that doesn't happen and it becomes nothing more than paper, it allows us to start to rethink deep-seated assumptions about how structures work, everything from materiality to social structures. So today I'm pitching a paper startup. It's called MyBoard. And what I want you guys to get from this exercise is starting to really fundamentally see how mentorship works in your organizations, your startups, your businesses, your startups, and start to think about, okay, can we think about mentorship in a very different way? So let's use a paper startup to rethink mentorship. There are a number of really cool stuff, and we've heard it today, and we've heard it in the past few days, of all these amazing trends. But okay, so we have this trend. How do we actually implement these trends down. I'm going to talk about 3 trends today. Metadata, it's allowing us to effectively map out a career trajectory, amazing. We can also visualize that career trajectory. We can use this data to start to match people up and have shared experiences beyond a career. And we can start to use that data and use those shared experiences to create short-form videos that are highly digestible. So let's rethink mentorship. I want mentorship to be passive. I want mentorship to have no onerous surveys, no tests that are ridiculous that you're asking these mentors who are very busy to do. I want it to be asymmetric. I want mentors and mentees to be able to have a relationship depends on their effort. So it's not a one-to-one relationship, it may be a one-to-many. And I want it to scale. I want to use new media to start to broaden that one-to-one relationship. So let's talk about passive, real-world data. You know, we talked about this economic graph that LinkedIn is having. I just got off a phone call with some guys that worked at LinkedIn, and they can predict with frightening accuracy what sort of job you will have depending on what region you live in. Scary, amazing. So what we start to realize is that if we're someone like Ryan, who's a sophomore at U of T right down here, he is actually the first to go to his university, first of his school, and he's also an architect student, and he's a little worried, and he's trying to figure out what he can do with architecture. With this sort of tool, what you can start to see is we can use analytics and use data to start to map out other people's life paths so that that person can start to, so that Ryan can look at Philip and start to see that a career path is not linear. In fact, Philip went through a significant change in his life as he became a development manager. And 18% of people that have that same experience and have that same background are going to do that. So his path is not actually that uncommon. Why is that important? Well, we can start to bridge this gap between expectation and reality. Right now, new grads have this big problem where they have this belief and they have this expectation. But the reality is really different. You know, that psych degree that you have, you might not become a psychology professor. You might end up in sales, and there's nothing wrong with that. Asymmetric, shared experiences will mean greater mentorship. Here we look at a MyBoard scenario. Instead of a one-to-one mentorship relationship, we have a board relationship, and we can start to create these I see myself moments in you. We can start to build empathy in mentorship as opposed to duty. And you can start to see that not only is Ryan the first to go to college, so is Philip. And this is a really important thing, that it's going to bring the chances of a good connection with Ryan and Philip increasingly a huge amount. So lastly, scalable. Technology will expand the one-to-one mentorship model. I'm incredibly excited about this. And you see these in these short-form video kind of tools that are starting to come up. MyBoard is looking at having this sort of thing, and not only is that going to be important, but students can ask these questions, these short-form videos, and get immediate validation with the amount of people that respond. You can have private questions, or you can have questions that are really important about things like, what do lawyers actually do on a day-to-day basis, right? How many people have gone to a law degree and spent thousands of dollars, only hundreds of thousands of dollars, only to realize that they did not actually want to be a lawyer? So passive, asymmetric, scalable mentorship will change the industry significantly, whether that's in mentorship programs, such as programs that are delivered at university levels, mentorship management, advice sharing platforms such as Quora, life mapping tools like what LinkedIn should be. That's going to be a big change. So go ahead, steal these ideas, run with them. Talk to me about these ideas. This is early venture stage. This is super early venture stage for me. And tell me about this, because I think when it comes to startups and mentorship, one startup's not going to solve this. And I think it's way too important for me to just take it on. So steal these ideas, run with these, come talk to me about this, and let's get it going. Thank you.
Any questions folks have?
Thank you. I'm actually an architect as well.
Awesome.
And I thought I was a senior for a moment, but that was a senior moment I was having. Thank you, Sergio. Yeah, I've had some organizations where I've created mentor relationships, and it's a very difficult thing to do, as you know. And what I have found historically is that when you go out and people seek their mentors out, the people they want to mentor them, most of the mentors don't know how to mentor a mentee. They don't know what to do. Have you thought through that process of you're in the kind of this process of saying I want to connect these people? Yeah. But then what's the incubator to get the conversation going in the right direction so they talk about the right kinds of things? Yeah.
So, I mean, you can always have at first there's kind of the shared experiences, because they can always talk about their shared experiences right off the bat. I think, honestly, it's going to be dependent on each mentorship relationship. I think a great mentorship program is going to be able to teach those people a little bit about that, but at the end of the day, I think that sort of learning happens by doing. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but you're right. There is a problem with mentors maybe not being the best mentors, but maybe if you have a board mentality, you can start to connect mentors together as opposed to having just a one-to-one. So if you have a board rather than a one-to-one relationship, those board mentors can talk to each other, might learn from each other. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sherman Doran at ASU, and a couple years ago when we were putting our education doctorate online, we were looking at what's now being called relationship management systems, which is a different thing from CMS and LMSs. And actually the most useful part of that was thinking about what actually we needed to have happen at the end stage of the doctoral program. So I'm just sort of thinking about, have you seen you've sort of been talking about this as in terms of relationships rather than platforms, and what I'm gathering is you're also not seeing any existing platforms that exist for this set of relationships that you're looking for.
I've started to see it. There's an interesting one that has a lot of promise that hasn't really figured it out yet, called Shearwater, out east. So I think there's a lot of that. But what I'm more interested is can we use kind of existing systems in place to leverage that? And that's more interesting for me. It's kind of like, can we use something like AngelList or LinkedIn or et cetera to do it?
Great. Well, thank you. I think we need to leave it there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Chris Shaw. I'm co-founder and CEO of Sidekick Education, and we are connecting classrooms and careers through a platform for real-world learning. So, and if I have time, I'm going to talk about a story later, but I also want to respect all of our time here. So to start with, we're trying to solve the college to career transition problem in higher education. $3,500, 400,000 times a year is what recruiters are spending on new college grad entry-level positions. So 400,000 times, you would think that we would get good at saving money here. But it turns out that only 11% of employers feel that new college grads are graduating with the skills they need for their position. So that's where Sidekick comes in, and I'm going to talk to you about how exactly we're going to do that. We are seamlessly bridging the real world and the classroom. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about who the platform brings together. So we have Noah, who is a student. And through our conversations, these students are they're almost graduating in senior year and still have no idea what they're supposed to be doing with their life. Not to mention that, as we see, they aren't necessarily skilled. We have the recruiters themselves, and then we have the schools. And it all starts with the product we built for the professor. So the Sidekick platform allows you to find projects. These are real projects happening with real companies that have an interest in talent recruitment and in CSR. You can find projects that you are interested in or your students are interested in, and they have an actual face behind the company. And this is where it gets cool. See, we can take projects in the real world, read a project brief, and tell you, how does the pathway map to your content? So you can learn through the project and not just not through activities that you do after you've already learned. Because we can map this to competencies of the students, we can also change those pathways depending on which students are in your class. And finally, all of this is algorithmic, which means as soon as something changes in the world, so do our recommendations, so the professor is never caught unprepared. So let's say that Don finds the perfect project here in Preem Global, which is a nonprofit that helps families with a child with disabilities in India. The students, so Noah, along with the rest of the students, is solving this problem along the way, may hit various playlists. We may hit up Calia along the way while we're at it to solve this problem for us. Documenting their progress on the project as well as their learning as they go. Now, Noah in particular really resonates with this project because Noah has, perhaps has a brother who has a disability. So this is something that is meaningful to him, and he digs deep into this project, performs well, and engages well. That performance and that engagement is going to show up in Noah's profile, which is something that the recruiters are going to be able to see on the other side to find the right fit. So let's say that Asha, who is the talent manager at Preem Global, she's looking at already pre-sorted on fit between these students and looking at the submission and finds Noah's submission. Thoroughly impressed, hits that button to say connect with Noah. They bring Noah in for an internship, or they bring Noah in for an interview, they secure that internship, and Noah's kind of figure out what he thinks he's going to be doing once he graduates. So I think it's cool that we're going to be solving for skills and that we're going to be bringing engagement and relevance to the classroom. But what also I think is important is that we're going to bring direction. So at $100, a professor can bring this into the classroom once, have a real world project with real relevance, and teach to their content. Those we expect to be leads into larger contracts with the colleges and departments themselves. These are engagement licenses, which means you have access to a partner management platform, so where you can manage your partners and you can engage those partners with these projects. It also gives you the curriculum recommendations that the professor can use or customize. And then finally, the big moneymaker is going to be on the recruitment side, where, like I said, we can give you profiles of students that are going to have the skills that these students have developed, a portfolio of projects they've completed, as well as an understanding of what is the right fit for that set of problems. So we're finally rounding out the core team. My background isn't, and I do have the time, so I'll tell you the story now. My background is in data science. I have been in finance and fintech and social media and sustainable e-commerce. My job has been to look at patterns in human behavior and figure out ways to use that to solve problems. I have always been more interested in the problems themselves. What value could we create by finding the patterns in those problems and seeing what we can do to affect human behavior? And I also always knew, since I was 16, I remember very clearly being a teen and making a promise to myself that I was going to come back to the classroom and change the perception, both mine and both for the teachers and everyone else around them, change the perception of what I could do. And here we are, that 10 years later, Sidekick is making good on that promise. We're filling out the rest with learning sciences, business development, and we're looking for that person that wants to build the app on top of my model. So finally, we have a vision here to, at the end of the day, we're a recommender engine. We're your Amazon shopping cart for curriculum. We have a vision to be a K-20 product to help a student figure out a direction, learn skills, learn it in a relevant way, and to do that all throughout their career and into the rest of their lifelong learning. However, that starts with you today. We have a product for the teacher. We would love now to talk to people that have your list of 3,000 industry partners and recruiters that you're holding in a spreadsheet somewhere or in a really complicated CRM. We would love to solve that problem for you. So if that's you, I would love to talk with you afterwards. Thanks.
Any questions for Sidekick? I think we have a mic coming right here.
Thank you. So you mentioned that you're a K-20 organization. Tell me exactly what does this look like for K-12 or high school?
I would love to do that. We have spent a lot of time in that direction. This is something that we've been working on for about a couple of years. So at K-12, I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, we have recruiters that are interested from a talent perspective. We also have found a strong number of partners on the foundation side or CSR side. They do this because they already have education initiatives. A lot of those are one school or one district. And so for those that are doing it for a community-based employee engagement program, great. A lot of them are doing it because of education. They have a vested interest in education. And so what we allow them to do is scale that impact beyond their zip code across the entire nation by providing these projects and these touch points on our platform. The product itself actually works better in K-12 because it's a lot easier to hit some standards that don't change very often than it is an entire ontology that changes across universities.
I really like this. It would be a real expander for personalized learning. I wonder, can you characterize the difference between it and, say, something like Upwork or the freelance.com kind of approaches?
Students work for free. No, I'm kidding. They do work for free, but they also learn. This is something, so if you look at a company called Ripen, RIIPEN, that's essentially what they do. Actually, We Solve in Chicago, which is close to my home, does something very similar, where they circumvent the system. What we want to do, the reason they are circumventing the system, what we're trying to solve is that you have practice and you have theory. And right now, universities are required, for good reason, to teach that theory. How do you fit it in the practice? We enmesh them and make them one and the same. So this is a learning exercise first. You build skills, you build a portfolio along the way. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to just say one or two more things, and then I think we'll open it up to see if there are any other questions or observations folks have for the whole group. The only other thing I wanted to do was to thank the other partners. So it was, as I said, the U.S. Department of Education worked with IDEO to put the challenge together, but we couldn't have done it without the support of our other partners. So GSV was on board helping out, Strata Education Network, Georgia Tech University, and Northeastern University. And all of these different partners brought different pieces of expertise or wisdom. Most of these folks were up in Boston at Northeastern for a few-day-long boot camp. Some of them are headed out to Georgia later this week to present at a panel down there. So the process was really exciting and engaging, and I think that there was a lot of back and forth and give and take from the global community and then from some of the experts in our network. So I just wanted to congratulate and thank you guys again, and really look forward to seeing what comes out of this, in the next couple of months and years down the road. So with that, I think we have a couple minutes, just a little more than 5 minutes, to see if there are any questions from the group. Or if you want to ask each other questions, that's fine as well.
Can you hear me? Yep, there we go. Given that this was an OpenIDEO challenge, can you speak a little bit to just what this idea of the challenge gave to you? Like, what was the most important piece of that process where you felt like you were really getting a lot out of the feedback or refinement that happened during that design process for the whole team?
I can speak to it a little bit. So I'm someone that maybe doesn't have, I've designed a lot of pitch decks, but I've done maybe a little bit less pitching. And I've done more pitching and building and kind of building design. So what I've realized is how similar it is to the design process of a building. And also I've realized that, when we think of architecture or we think of design, we think of it having this beautiful process right off the bat, but it's actually really messy, and startups are really messy. No one knows what they're doing. So it's good. It's nice to know that. There's something really liberating on realizing that no one knows what they're doing. Yeah.
And to speak to that, it was nice to put it out there and get different feedback from different people. And then it was also difficult from our side as you're iterating, we're learning. Like I talked about, we talking to over 2,000. Messaging 2,000 schools, getting feedback from, getting on the phone with over 200 people, like all that feedback, like how do you capture that for the competition to see, but you're evolving really quickly. But it pushed us in the rigor in that process to like focus on the feedback and just keep shifting and just make it work. So. Yeah.
And a lot of the content is actually still on the IDEO website, so if you go on there, you can actually see each of these ideas, and you can see all the comments that came in from people across the world, some of the back and forth. So I think as important as these ideas, just surfacing the back and forth, there's tons of other runners-up and other ideas that are on there I think will live on and hopefully inspire some other people as well.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions that folks had?
Stick around after.
So I had one more, and then we can let folks go. So this conference, I think there's been a lot of talk about disruption, and then there's the existing colleges and universities, and I think that all of your ideas fit in a little bit with both. So can you talk a little bit about the tension of working with the current market, but then also trying to look ahead to a world where things may or may not be disrupted or unbundled or whatever the new word is going to be?
Yeah. So in higher ed, and particularly in Austin, like, we'd be remiss to not acknowledge that the American higher education system is still the envy of the world, and has still been an incredible path of economic opportunity and social mobility, and creating, particularly since the GI Bill in World War II, like a whole middle class in America. I think what we're learning and what we're all seeing is that the economy is changing quicker and quicker, and sometimes within higher ed and within institutions of education, it's difficult for lots of good reasons to change and keep up. And so to the degree that we can do a little bit of innovation and learning outside, both to serve students that don't fit and bring that back to traditional institutions that are doing good work with complex stakeholders, I think it's both acknowledging and admiring the work that's being done and hoping to add to that through work that's outside.
I think in looking at disruption as well, like maybe I look at it from I was able to take the course with the guy who wrote Innovator's Dilemma, which was an awesome privilege, but also thinking it of higher ed is as we're focused on creating an alternative path, you need other people focused on, like you guys are focused on getting people through the current system, and you need that. You need both at the same time as things are shifting. Because if you just ignore one and not the other, then you leave out a lot of people. So I think that's the humbling and important thing that through my journey, I've seen in terms of disruption.
Chris, did you want to talk? Because you didn't explain. You're good.
Sure, I can say something.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll come back afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, with Sidekick, we kind of made a decision. Actually, I'll start in a different way. So, many of you have probably read or have seen Steve Case talk about kind of the third wave. We're definitely in the third wave with this. Like the entire conference is about the third wave, where you're going to see these private institutions work in partnership with these longstanding public systems. And so I don't necessarily see a disruption in the sense where we're not going to have, they're going to evolve together is the future. And so that was one thing that we were kind of cognizant of when we created Sidekick. We wanted to fit in the lecture hall. And for the meantime, the lecture hall will still be the lecture hall, but at least we'll be part of that wave into whatever it's going to be next.
For me, I kind of despise the term disruption. I kind of like creation instead. Disruption kind of assumes that you need to completely shake up and like throw out everything. And what I've learned in architecture is that buildings today are based on a history of buildings in the past, and businesses and startups today are standing on the shoulders of giants. So I think those giants are universities, and there's a lot to learn, and I don't think the system is broken. I think it needs help, but I don't think it needs to be replaced by any means.
I mean, I think it's broken, but it's okay.
All right. Well, on that editorial comment, I think we'll end. Thank you all for coming. Please be in touch with anyone on our panel. In touch with me. My email is david.sue@ed.gov. It's very easy. First.last@ed.gov. But we really want to keep engaging on these topics. So please come talk to us and engage online.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.